Jennifer Kerr was a single mom who wanted to improve her family's future. In 2009, she signed up at Vatterott College. She thought that was the best way to improve her skills and training and do a better job for her family. She went to the local campus. She told the admissions representative that she wanted to study to become a nurse. The admissions official told her that although the school did not offer a nursing degree, it did offer a medical assistance degree that would allow her to earn $15 to $17 an hour and put her on a fast track to becoming a nurse. After securing more than $27,000 in loans and being in the program for more than a year, Jennifer Kerr learned that she wasn't even enrolled in the medical assistance program. She was in the preliminary medical office assistance program. And if she wanted to continue and pursue the medical assistance degree, she would need another 30 weeks of study and another $10,000 to be paid in tuition. In a gutsy move, Jennifer Kerr sued Vatterott Education Centers for misleading her, even though there was a clause in her contract with the school that said she would never sue the school if she ever sued the school and lost, she'd be responsible for Vatterott's legal costs. A jury in Missouri decided that the school did deceive Jennifer Kerr, ordered the company to pay back the $27,000 she'd borrowed for tuition and fees. The jury then ordered the company to pay Kerr an additional $13 million in punitive damages. The punitive amount the jury awarded far exceeded the maximum under Missouri law, but it showed the sympathy of the jury for situations like Jennifer Kerr's. She borrowed tens of thousands of dollars to earn a certificate, not even a degree, at a for-profit school that's turned out to be virtually worthless. After she left Vatterott, she tried for 6 months to find full-time employment. Earning her medical office assistant diploma not only put her in debt, but it couldn't land her a job anywhere. Now, take away the court victory, Jennifer Kerr's story is common to an industry, the for-profit school industry, that frequently uses unscrupulous tactics to deceive people who are just trying to get an education. Some trade schools provide quality training for reasonable prices. I acknowledge that. But throughout the for-profit college industry, abuses are well documented. Admissions offices at for-profit schools are often a guise for aggressive sales operations targeting students from low-income families. They end up enrolling with inflated expectations for their employment and salary prospects upon graduating from for-profit colleges. Because 96% of the students who enroll in for-profit colleges take federal student loans, 96 for for-profit colleges, it's 13% for those going to community colleges. 96% of those in for-profit colleges take federal student loans. Nearly all the students who leave these for-profit schools have student debt, even when they don't have a degree or a diploma that can lead to a job. Most for-profit colleges charge significantly more in tuition and expenses than similar programs at community colleges or even state universities. In 2008 and 2009, more than 1 million students started at schools owned by for-profit companies that were examined in an investigation by Senator Tom Harkin and the Senate Help Committee. By mid-2010, 54% of those students that started at these for-profit schools had left school, 54%, without a degree or a certificate. Among associate's degree students, 63% dropped out without a degree. Vatterott made national news itself in 2009 and early 2010 when 3 of the top employees of this for-profit school in the Midwest, including Kevin Earl Woods, the former director of the Kansas City campus, pleaded guilty to a conspiracy to fraudulently obtain federal student grants and loans for students who were ineligible for these loans. The Senate Help Committee looked at Vatterott in the course of Chairman Harkin's investigation of the for-profit industry. What they found was discouraging. In 2009, 88% of the revenue going to this for-profit school was federal money. Of the money it took in, Vatterott spent 12.5% on advertising and marketing, took out 19% of this federal money in profit. Here's another way to look at it. Vatterott, a for-profit school, spent $2,400 per student on instruction in 2009, but it spent $1,343 on marketing and $2,000 it took out in profit for each student. In contrast, public and nonprofit schools generally spend a higher amount per student on actual instruction. By comparison, St. Louis Community College spent $5,000 per student on instruction. Vatterott, $2,400. Jennifer attended the Vatterott campus in Independence, Missouri, which is now closed, but the company continues to operate at Kansas City campus. The default rate on loan repayment for students who attended Vatterott in Kansas City is 25%. 1 out of 4 students who went to this for-profit school default on their student loans. The national average is 15%. Jennifer Kerr fought back and won, but the for-profit college industry won't be cleaned up in the courtroom. Not every student with a bad experience has a strong legal case. Most are just victims of a system that allows unscrupulous schools to collect federal loan and grant money from students regardless of outcomes, heaping debt on these students. Many of those students will carry that debt for a lifetime. When the programs and the schools don't deliver and jobs don't materialize, the student gets the debt, the federal government bears the risk, and the school takes the money and runs. The for-profit sector took in $31 billion in U.S. Department of Education money in 2011. About 1/4 of all the federal aid went to these for-profit schools, even though they only enroll 12% of all the students coming out of high school. I might add one other statistic. The for-profit schools account for 47% of all the student loan defaults in America. 12% of the students, 25% of the federal aid to education, 47% of the student loan defaults. Federal U.S. Department of Education regulations state the schools that engage in substantial misrepresentation about a program, its fees, or its job placement can be denied federal money. And yet Vatterott is not the first school or the only school to substantially mislead these students. Abuses in the for-profit college industry will continue until Congress steps up and does something. It's about time for us to establish some standards of accreditation that apply to all schools across the board. How can you expect a student or a student's family to know whether or not this school that is advertising on the internet or on the buses or on the billboards is a real school or just a phony operation to lure kids into debt, have them drop out, or end up with a worthless diploma? I've worked with my colleagues who feel as I do on this issue. Senators Tom Harkin and Jack Reed, among others. We'll continue to tell these stories here on the floor of the Senate in the hopes that when the Senate has its higher ed reauthorization bill, we will finally tackle this for-profit school industry. Last Congress, Senator Tom Harkin joined me in introducing a bill that would include military education benefits in the calculation that limits how much of a school's revenue is derived from federal funding. Today, I announced the Defense Appropriations Bill for the next fiscal year. It was reported out of my subcommittee of the Senate Appropriations Committee. We called in representatives from the major services and asked them, what's going on with the training of our active service members and their families? And what they told us is more than half of those active service members and their families are going to these same for-profit schools. Some are good. Most are awful. These military men and women and their families are not only wasting their time, they're wasting a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity we give them for the proper training and education to prepare them to be even better in the military or to have success in civilian life. And because they are lured into these for-profit schools, they end up wasting their time, wasting their money, many of them deeply in debt. Senator Hagan of North Carolina has proposed banning schools from using federal education dollars for marketing. She's right. Many for-profit schools literally take the federal money to bombard students with messages that entice them to enroll, bringing the schools more federal money. I also want to take a look at this system of accreditation. Our current accreditation system provides a seal of approval for too many schools, many of them for-profit colleges, that is really little more than a license to rake in the federal dollars as opposed to truly educating and training students. I hope Jennifer Kerr's court victory can serve as a wake-up call to Congress so we can work together to correct the worst abuses of this system. On behalf of the taxpayers, we need to be better stewards of federal education money. On behalf of the students, we have to improve a system that may or may not prepare them for a career and may or may not lead to a degree, but almost in every case leads to debt.